I am William Hall, and it is a new episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast. We are in the thick of it. We have 6 game days left in the season for men's and women's basketball, and it's I would say, is it crunch time, Patrick? What do you think? Do you call this crunch time? Is it too early for crunch time? I don't want to overreact. I mean, I'm just
definitely crunch time.
Definitely crunch time. Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're definitely crunch time. We have teams that are making their push for ASUN postseason play. On the men's side, look, when you look at the top of the men's standings, we got 4 teams sitting at the top. All 4 of these teams have punched their ticket to the ASUN championship. All 4 sitting at 9-3. I agree, crunch time, because they're trying to find some separation here to lock up a hosting, potentially be the regular season champion. We got Lipscomb, North Alabama, Jacksonville, and FGCU. All 4 of these teams 9-3. Lipscomb, North Alabama, I would call them usual suspects. I mean, we've been talking about these 2 teams consistently for the entire season. Obviously, Lipscomb because of preseason number 1 pick on our coaches poll, anticipated to be the team that is crowned the ASUN champion when things are wrapped up. North Alabama has just been there constantly as one of our top teams. Other 2 teams at 9-3, Jacksonville and FGCU. Jacksonville, of course, had the big win in non-conference action. They had a streak that was going on that was ruined, coincidentally, by FGCU. And we've talked about FGCU. Now, I know I started last week's podcast praising the Eagles. EKU handled business against FGCU. And speaking of EKU, 8-4, along with Queens, like right behind that 9-3 group. I mean, we look around this thing. It is crunch time. 6 games left, and I can't tell you that I don't have a lock. I don't have a team that I look at and say that's the one right now. And that's a good thing for our tournament, for the competitiveness of the season. When you look around, there's so many teams that could get this done and you think can have a run when things get started on March 2nd and end up hosting the ASUN Championship trophy. So a lot of games left, but not that many. I mean, 6 is – again, just a few weeks. I mean, we're creeping up on the end of the season and postseason play getting started. So crunch time. I think that's exactly the perfect way to say that. And on the women's side, I think that FGCU, of course, 12-0, still undefeated. They're rolling. On the other, not the other side, but like right behind them. It's going to be the other side in a couple of weeks. And I think we've all got that big circle around February 20th. But
for real.
Central
That's
August.
what I was going to say. It's like the only thing I wanted to say on the podcast. So you got to hope that FGCU and UCA take care of business this week so the 20th game is big
so
time.
It does, I mean, you don't want to look ahead. You don't want to, they're not looking ahead. So it's us. So we could do it a little bit. I mean, we can get a little excited.
UCA has a difficult schedule. I think FGCU will be okay, though. They have to go to Stetson.
Yeah,
which is a difficult game.
Which is a game. Stetson, like you said, they play them so well because they see them so much. I think that's part of it. Like that's a 2 games a year at minimum, with them not facing each other at some point in time in the postseason. So yeah, that Stetson game is not clearly one that you can just look past. Now, yeah, I will say North Alabama and Austin Peay for Central Arkansas is the tougher slate. Both those teams get past this week's games. You've got a 14-0 FGCU team going on the road to play a 13-1 team in Central Arkansas. It's a next week discussion, but we can look ahead with some forethought. And again, that's the matchup. That's the thing. Can it shift the tournament from running through Fort Myers as it has in the past? But I mean, outside of that, you look outside of those top 2. I mean, you got Lipscomb right there. You got Stetson. You've got North Alabama, who has found some rhythm, is there in the mix. I mean, these teams, EKU, Jacksonville, Bellarmine, all those teams are kind of jockeying for that position because FGCU and Central Arkansas have clearly separated themselves at this point. FGCU's got 12-0. They got a 1-game lead on Central Arkansas. There's a 3-game gap between 2 and 3. 11-1 Central Arkansas, 8-4 Lipscomb. So it's the women's. I think the same thing can be said about the women. Not so much at the top, but once you get outside of those first two, there's a lot of teams that are just kind of there, jockeying for positions, and I don't know on that side either. Like Patrick, when you look at this right now, outside of those top two, because again, like we said, they've established themselves, they pulled away. Who's next to you? Who's that next tier? If you had to say, I mean, who are the other two teams that are going to be hosting quarterfinal games in the tournament? If you had to go with two, if you had to pick two, it's tough. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, because we also just have so much for one, there's a lot of parity outside of those two. I would probably go in terms of like a roster that I'm sure of. It'd probably be EKU, but they've had missteps.
6-6, yeah.
But in terms of wow, a team's just well coached. I feel like they're playing above their ability. It's Lipscomb. So those two in my head are 3 and 4. And Lipscomb has the opportunity to jettison themselves up to 2 by the end of the season. Is what I would say. I think FGCU is solid at 1, but those two. I just think Coach Sumsky at Lipscomb is excellent. She always gets her players ready to go. So I trust her ability down the stretch of the season.
Two very interesting teams because I'm sorry. I as you were saying, I got soft running in my head. EKU, the first team you mentioned, solid picks as your 3 and 4. EKU, I think that they have given or that they gave FGCU the toughest game in conference play that anybody has given them. I think that game. I think EKU could have gotten that game. I think that the recent game with FGCU, and Lipscomb. I feel like. I know you said you think they could play their way. You think they could play their way up to 2. They've lost to FGCU. They lost twice to Central Arkansas. Does that kind of keep them under or
yeah, I feel like they just lose. They lose weird games. Like if you look statistically at Lipscomb, they're the number 1 offense in our conference currently in terms of points per game. I think they're top 3 or 5 in defense. So they have it's all there. They just lose these weird games. So I'll take Lipscomb at a 3.
I don't think. I mean, if you
they just lose weird games. And my question to you is who outside of those Central Arkansas, FGCU, who else has all ASUN players that will lift you in March?
And to your point, which is a great point, we're talking about Lipscomb. They're 8-4. They're out of their 4 losses. UCA accounts for 2 of them, and FGCU accounts for the other one. So the one loss they had outside of playing those top 2 teams is they lost to Stetson. So, and that was a tough competitive game a couple weeks ago. So I think to your point, Lipscomb is a solid team that's in a good position, and they haven't struggled out for the most part outside of those 2 teams. Again, that we've stated the separation. They're kind of the top tier.
Of those 2 teams, who you think has more All-ASUN selections?
Between Lipscomb and EKU?
Yeah, I think it's probably 2-1. Lipscomb gets Vinson and McGowan, and EKU gets Cosner or Recanati, one of the 2, depending on how the teams shake out.
Yeah, I think Lipscomb. I think Lipscomb. I think Lipscomb is a bit more. I think Lipscomb. I mean, knowing that. Yeah.
Right. That's probably how it shakes out. But if you go that's the thing. If you compare these 2 teams, the top half of Lipscomb is Bella Vincent and then McGowan, Clara McGowan, and then a break on that team a little bit. Those 2 are the top dogs on that team. But if you look at EKU team, they spread it out a little bit more. Cosner and Recanati have very similar scoring stats. I think they're close, right after each other in points per game. Probably around, I think, the 14 range. Don't quote me on that. I can look that up for you guys before this ends. But then you have Jasmine McGinnis Taylor, who's also a very, very good player in the league. So like,
yeah,
they have more volume and like great talent, whereas Lipscomb has those two on the top half. But I would probably still pick with Lipscomb. I just think they have more going for them. Coaching.
Let me give you a different question then.
Scoring, defense.
I'm putting you on the spot. I think this is who is the team that you think is out of it in the sense of nobody's really checking for them? Who's the team that you think is gonna
Stetson?
Really?
Yeah.
You think Stetson?
Stetson could just win. But you're
thinking Stetson. When I say out, I mean out's not the word I wanted to use. I use a bad word. Under the radar is what I want to say. You think Stetson's under the radar?
Yeah, I think one of the most under the radar players in the conference right now is Promise Keshi. I think she's legit the perfect player for what Lynn Bria wants to do in DeLand.
Is
hustle, good defense. Can hit layups and be effective down in the paint.
Is Stetson more under the radar than Jacksonville?
So Jacksonville has size and Eden Battle.
So probably not under the radar there if you got Eden Battle.
Yeah. So that's a good pick. That probably should have been my pick, but I just think.
Well, no, I mean your pick is your pick. I mean we're talking about 6 and 6 and 7 and 5. So it's not like either one of them is like, oh, how can you say an under radar team that's got 10 wins or a team that's got 4 or something. So they're right there. They're about to play too. So
I think Lynn Bria is like the ultimate underdog in ASUN women's basketball. Like since I've been here, which is 2 years. Last year, were not high expectations for that team. She won Coach of the Year. Because they played themselves into a 2 seed. Didn't do great in the tournament, but whatever. They had what anyone would consider a very successful season. And if FGCU doesn't exist, they potentially win it, right? And I think this year, she lost a lot from last year's team. Like she's just right back to it. This is a tough team, and they play her style basketball, which is always good. You got player buy-in, and I just think, and playing in DeLand is just difficult. She's made it difficult to play there. So that's why I'll pick Stetson. But Jacksonville's a good pick. They have the size to win a couple games in the tournament. Can they win it all? I don't know.
I think they have size, and they also have
Eden Battle, which is the cheat code.
Enough said. I think that's. I'm looking forward to that game. That's another one of those good games. These Florida teams match up. They always give it to each other.
If Eden Battle didn't miss a couple games there, is she the player of the year? She's far and away ahead of everybody else in scoring. There's a 3 or 4 point gap. It can't be 4. It's got to be 3. There's a 3-point gap right now between her and the rest of the conference.
Your question is, will she be even with the missed games?
Yeah, well, I just think
I would say
I think it's going to be Imani still. She still had a good season. Just because Imani's just the complete player. Defense, offense. Eden is definitely improved on defense, but
to both of our I don't want to say credit, to both of our detriment when we're talking about, these under the radar teams, I named the team who's got the leading scorer in the ASUN, and you named the team who's got the second leading scorer in the ASUN. Yeah. So Kemper Thomas, I don't think we named 2 teams that probably aren't under anybody's radar.
A lot under the radar here.
Yeah, you have. I think that she, yes, I think she's still in the conversation. I think the team's success obviously plays something into it. So you're looking at Jacksonville at 6-6 right now. Does that affect any views about her effectiveness? But
I feel bad. I talked about Stetson and didn't even mention Cameron Thomas. That's bad on my part. Hand up.
Well, you were trying to sell that they were under the radar. So
I was saying Promise Kesh is under the radar too. So just saying.
Name dropping a cheat code in itself down in the land. I would do that too if I was trying to sell that they're under the radar. So no, I think that's a solid pick of team that, and not even necessarily under the radar, just a team that can turn it on, make this push. Her teams are always competitive, and I think there are a couple that I have. I mean, I'm remembering what Bellarmine did in non-conference and what that team can be, and I'm not going to be surprised, and I'm also not going to be surprised with North Alabama because I remember the things that team has done this season. And, UNA's 75 right now. Bellarmine's 5-7, but
it's going to be a great tournament.
Got a lot of things to turn around.
It's going to be a great tournament.
And 10 teams are going to be in there. So it's looking good. Real quick, talk about our players of the week. On the men's side, player of the week was Devontae Blanton. Newcomer of the week, Cornelius Williams from North Alabama. Women's basketball player of the week, Leah Mafua, Central Arkansas. Our newcomer of the week, Lauren Taylor, getting another award from FGCU. And her resident freshman of the week, she's back at it again, Samaya Wyatt from Austin P. Congratulations to all of those student athletes. And let's slide some softball in here. UNA, one of two of our 5-0 squads from softball, and UNA swept the weekly awards, the first ones of the 2025 season for the sport of softball, with Briley Dover and Emily Simon winning player and pitcher of the week, respectively. So a lot going on in the ASUN. Things are heating up. Spring sports are coming and rolling, but we're locked in on basketball. Last few weeks. Gonna take a quick break, and you know what's next, the Power Rankings. I'm here with Tony Kemper, head coach of Central Arkansas women's basketball, the Sugar Bears. Coach,
Sugar Bears.
How you doing?
I'm great. It's good to be here.
I love always having you on the ASUN Gameday podcast. So just one quick question, very important. Baseball season is right around the corner. We know you're the head coach of women's basketball, but if you were lacing up the cleats for Coach Harlan and the Bears, you're batting leadoff, what's your walk-up song?
Man, that's I mean, you got me on that one. So I'm an old school JUCO guy.
Okay.
So I would probably be a little Snoop next episode.
Oh.
Probably.
Okay.
Because I'm old school like that.
I like that.
So that kind of gets I can go a lot of different ways with my music genre. But I feel like if Coach Harlan's Jack now. I mean, you got to be with it to play for him.
Yeah.
So I got to get myself into the game and get myself jacked up to bat leadoff. So probably that. I'll get a little juiced with that one.
Solid pick. Pick. Well, congratulations on the season so far.
Thank you.
We'll see you down the road.
Very good.
Thank you. It is time for the Power Rankings. Patrick, men's or women? Where are we going first?
Let's keep rolling with the women's. Let's go with the women's power ranking first.
Keep rolling with the women. I think this is the one that had the least amount of change, so the safe one first. North Alabama is at 6. Stetson at 5. EKU 4. Lipscomb 3. Central Arkansas 2. FGCU 1. It gets so anticlimactic at the top, but can't do anything with teams that are just winning 14-game winning streak at a 10-game winning streak. Kind of lock you into to where you are. But I think Lipscomb, back-to-back wins, back in the win column. I think it's solid for them. EKU, I'm not going to take much from them for the loss to FGCU. It's a tough game. Multiple reigning championship program coming in, and it was a tight game. So that's why I got them at 3. I mean, that's why I have them at 4. Stetson, I think Stetson as well is just kind of in the mix. And obviously I've got North Alabama coming in at 6. I think UNA is getting their stride at the right time. So they're at 6. On the men's side, 6, I've got Queens. How's that strike you? Just coming out of the gate with Queens at 6. Too high, too low?
That's probably right. 8-4. Lost to who did they lose to? Lipscomb this week.
They did.
It makes that Lipscomb win earlier this year just not quite as good because they split the series.
Would it have been better if this series had they split the opposite way? If the home teams had won?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I like it the other way, actually. I think it's better the
You
away
like
team.
it better the way it happened with the road teams.
Yeah, because a road win to me is always more important than a home win. But
I agree. So each of them won the harder game.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, man, if they were able to, like, it would have been so huge for Queens if they were able to get both those games. And they were in it. I don't know if we should include this anecdote, but I texted some members of the office. I was like, oh, wow. They're like, I was like, this Queens game is tight. This is a great game. And then Lipscomb went on a 9-0 run right as I texted that. So
that's how it happens.
Sorry, Queens. That's my bad.
So, yeah, Queens at 6. 5 is FGCU. Nothing. Okay. All right. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah, I mean, they split the week, so.
I've got Jacksonville
Gotta
at
go
4.
Probably right.
Got North Alabama at 3.
I'm cool with that.
Lipscomb at 2.
Lipscomb at 2. Who you got at number 1?
EKU.
That's crazy.
Why?
Lipscomb should be 1.
Why?
I'm cool with EKU too, but
why?
they have a better record.
Okay, they got one more win.
EKU had the more impressive win away at FGCU. Or was that a home game? I can't remember.
In this 5-game winning streak that EKU is on, which is the longest streak we've got on the men's side, during this streak they beat FGCU twice, and they beat Lipscomb.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm making my case.
You're right.
I'm making my case for them
They're
being
getting
at the
good
moment.
Right time.
They're at the right time. That's all. So right now, today, they don't have their best record, but I think right now they're playing the best basketball. And in this stretch, they've beat teams that have already clinched their spot in the tournament.
Here's what I gotta say about EKU.
Okay.
I like the Colonels. My problem is that if you are able to shut down Devontae Blanton, I think that team becomes a little bit one-dimensional. And they've gotten way better from the biggest, to me, in my head, when I think about, like, how you cut them out, the Clemson game earlier, in the non-conference game, they had Clemson on the ropes. They kept feeding Devontae Blanton, and then he kept getting doubled, and Clemson's lead grew, and the game was over. They kept it in there until the last 4 minutes, I would say. Since then, they've had more contributors.
Well, again, I think they've won 6 of their. They've on a 5-game winning streak. They've won 6 of their last 7. Do you know? Do you remember the one that they lost in this stretch of 7 games?
Yeah, the Stetson game.
So
who could forget?
Right,
they should have won that game. You never want to get okay. I hate saying that because they should never have been in that situation.
I know, I get it, and they lost the game. Stetson won the game. Not taking anything from Stetson, but that game.
Stetson won on a buzzer beater. Just to
they won on a buzzer beater.
Give some reference to the listeners.
Oh, they're deep. If they're listening to the podcast, they are deep in their ASUN basketball knowledge. So, but yes, the framework around that. So the Stetson buzzer beater is what caused them to lose that Stetson game. Before that, they beat Bellarmine. Before that, they went to overtime with Austin P. I get it. They had lost those back-to-back games to Jacksonville. They lost to Austin P. They've got the loss against Stetson. But over the past few weeks, I would say the past month, EKU has been one of the better teams in the conference.
Yeah. You
take away that buzzer beater, they've got an asterisk by their name right now too, with 9 wins, but they only have 8. And things could change. They could take it, But I think at the moment, I've got them at 1 because as a whole, they're playing well, just like we talked about Jacksonville a few weeks ago. Yeah. At the time, they were putting it together and they were hot. I mean, EKU is hot right now. EKU's got game. They've got 3 straight at home, 4 straight in the state of Kentucky. They got 3 at home, and then they go to play Bellarmine. Then they come down to Jacksonville to play Jacksonville, North Florida to end the season. But I mean, they've got the game with Lipscomb coming up.
To finish a point I was trying to make earlier, I want to say this. I mentioned the Clemson game. Blanton freeze, right? Since that game, to me, they've become way less one-dimensional. They could rely on George Kimball way more, who's been, without a doubt, the most surprising player in the ASUN this year. I don't think that's even a question of, did we really know he was going to be this good this year? Turner Butchery has shown up a lot more. It affected the game. I don't think he was doing that earlier. He was just kind of there. Now he's much more important now than I think he was, and he's contributing. So that's my EKU take. They're less one-dimensional than they were a month ago.
Sounds like you're on board with them being the number one in the power rankings right now.
They're getting better, and that's what you want to get hot at the right time. This is the right time to be hot.
It is, because you said it's crunch time. So EKU is crunch time. Just letting you know in case you didn't know. So now let's take a look at some games to watch this week. And starting on the women's side, North Alabama at Central Arkansas. I've talked about North Alabama I think they're getting things together. And we've also talked about Central Arkansas having a tough stretch, the North Alabama game in Austin Peay before they get to FGCU. Clearly they're not looking ahead. We are. But North Alabama has a chance to go in there and steal one against Central Arkansas and put themselves in an even better position to clinch for the postseason. EKU at Bellarmine, the interstate rivalry. I think that both of those teams were very strong in non-conference. We've kind of been waiting for both of them to turn it on in conference play. Bellarmine's 5-7, EKU 6-6. Two teams kind of in the middle of things. I think this is a game that could put one of them clearly where they want to be, or it just evens things out. And we're looking at them both being 6-7 if Bellarmine was to win. I like that matchup between those two teams. I think that's going to be a good game. And the game I think I'm obviously paying attention to most is a game that we already talked about as well. Stetson at FGCU. Just curious to see what, again, as we talked about, that team, Lynn Bria's teams, they always play FGCU hard. FGCU trying to maintain throughout the week of being undefeated and keep their push for a regular season championship. And Stetson is a team that they can get them. They've got them in the past. They've broken some streaks by FGCU, and I don't see any reason why this team this year can't get it done. So that's the game I think is the game of the week on the women's side. On the men's side, there's a lot of good ones, but I think Saturday is loaded up in my opinion. Saturday we've got Jacksonville at North Alabama as a rematch of a game that was last played in Jacksonville and Swisher, and that was a crazy game. Came to a foul. Will Sousa's at the line shooting 3 free throws. Great game between those two teams. So now we're getting the rematch. I know UNA's probably been waiting on the chance to get back at Jacksonville to try to split the season series. That was a game at the time where we were very high on North Alabama, and Jacksonville kind of took them out of their rhythm that they had. And I think that kind of sparked Jacksonville's run they had going before they ran into FGCU themselves in that same building. But that UNA game really, I think, started the ball rolling for Jacksonville, which they still got their momentum going. Jacksonville, they brushed off that slow week they had and have gotten back to winning. FGCU at Lipscomb, I think, is another game that is big on the men's side. FGCU clearly at the top of the standings, along with Lipscomb. I think this will be the game that I'm looking at as probably the one of the biggest games because, again, this is Saturday. So this is a Saturday matchup. Before they get to that game, FGCU plays Austin Peay, Lipscomb plays Stetson. So not saying that these teams will be tied in the standings when they play on Saturday. But again, that game, they're trying to obviously push for, they want that 1 seed. They want to continue to maintain themselves at the top of the standings to get those home games. So that's a big one when those teams at the top are playing each other. And another game on the men's side that I'm really focused on is Queens at EKU. We've talked about EKU, got them number 1 in the power rankings. I think they're going they're going at a pace right now that's reminding me of that team that won the regular season championship last year, and they're hitting the right stride at the right time. It's crunch time, as we've said. So, but Queens, I don't think Queens is going away, and I'm obviously this season has been a great season for Queens. I don't think clearly they're not satisfied. I don't think the team is done, and I think getting a chance to help slow down the momentum of EKU could be big. And again, talking about a game where Queens plays Bellarmine before they play EKU. EKU hosts West Georgia before they get the Royals. So not looking over the Thursday games, but it's a big Saturday coming up in ASUN men's basketball. But there is a big Friday coming up in ASUN baseball. Tomorrow is opening day. We've been waiting on it. It's here. It's finally here. Stetson Hatters looking to try to defend their 2024 ASUN championship crown. Got a lot of baseball to be played, but we do know we're going to be back in DeLand for our 2025 ASUN baseball championship. Stetson will love to raise that trophy on their home field again, but we're just getting started. But it is opening day tomorrow. This is the ASUN Game Day podcast. I am William Hall. So excited that we're in crunch time, as Patrick has told us, and it's just getting sweeter. Tournament plays around the corner. So I'm signing off, and I'll see you next time on the ASUN Game Day podcast.